This is the Wallke H6 Max, and I assume Max is for like maximum battery because the battery is huge. The bike is, it's a folding bike, but it's big and it's long and it's heavy, but it's got front shocks. It's got dual rear shocks from Fast Ace. It has a seat on the back that comes stock. A little surprised they don't have some sort of pegs or something that comes with that, but anyway, it's got a seat cushion on the back. It's got hydraulic brakes. I've been seeing these DIY island brakes on more and more bikes as of late, and in this particular bike, they're using these absolutely massive rotors. Now they kind of look like they're probably a 203. I haven't actually measured it, but this portion is clearly a lot thicker. And then what you can't really see probably on camera too well is the thickness this way is way bigger than a standard bicycle brake. These things are heavy duty. It is a 4-piston brake. So I am rather happy to see some big beefy brakes on this thing because it's actually a pretty beefy, heavy bike. I mentioned that the battery was really big. It's 48 volts and 40 amp hours. Realistically, that means you could probably go 75, 80 miles on this thing on just the throttle. This is, I think, like an entirely new class of electric bike that's starting to emerge where they are bicycles. They usually have 750 watts maximum. I did already do the dyno run. I will show you the results of that a little bit later, but they're putting these massive batteries on so you don't have range anxiety anymore. You can basically go as long as you feel like riding and you don't have to worry about running out of battery power. Now, of course, there are some downsides to that. The weight of this thing, I haven't weighed it. I don't know how much it weighs. I should probably check their website and put it on screen here. It does kind of mess with the folding aspect of the bike, makes it kind of big and clunky to move around. I guess on the plus side, the battery is a huge chunk of that weight, really easy to remove. So by popping the battery out, it makes it a little easier to lift, but it's not your typical lightweight folding bike. They also went with these cast wheels, which although they look great and long-term reliability, they're gonna be great, they do add some weight to the overall bike. Now, one thing I do like about these batteries is, if we unlock it here, there we go, they have this handle on the top. So when you go to pull it out, it actually is pretty easy to carry. I feel like most e-bike batteries feel really awkward and clunky, but it's realistically because they don't have a handle. I don't think I realized that until I got this bike and I popped that battery out for the first time, thinking it was gonna be an absolute bear to move around, and it wasn't. I could actually lug it around pretty easily. So good on them for putting a nice big sturdy handle on the top of that thing. But I don't feel like I can do a proper review on this bike if I just do my normal riding around. I feel like when you have this much battery, you have to go somewhere because these bikes are meant to be ridden long distances. So that's my plan. I've got a limited amount of time. I'm hoping this bike goes fast enough. I'm hoping everything holds up so it goes far enough. I'm gonna try and make it from Rough and Ready, California to Bridgeport. It is, I believe, the longest single span covered bridge possibly in North America. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. Now, to get from here to there should be fairly easy. It is downhill. Getting back, however, is a very steep climb out of the canyon where the river is. So I'm gonna use this bike for what I believe its intended purpose is, basically a road trip. So first impressions, I suppose, would be that the bike is pretty fast. I feel like this is a slight uphill right here, and I'm doing 30 miles an hour. On the flats back there, I was doing maybe 33 or so. It still feels pretty torquey too. It doesn't feel slow. As far as being prepared for a long trip like this, There probably is a good list of things I would normally recommend. I didn't bring them. I'm relying on a cell phone in my pocket in case of emergency, but realistically, there may or may not be any reception out there. I'm relying on a single multi-tool in my left pocket, and I did put flat out in both tires because I do not want a flat. Other than the flat out, the bike is totally stock. I'm doing about 35 miles an hour down this hill, cruising right along. I'm hoping that the battery percentage reading is not very accurate because it just dropped down to 79%, and I've only gone a few miles. That math doesn't compute. We'll just hope that it's not right, because it was fully charged before I left. I am going pretty fast though, so that could be draining things down. So we're just passing through Lake Wildwood. I guess that's the point of these videos though, push the bikes to the limits and see what they can actually do. All right, so this is a pretty decent grade. I'm doing, according to the display, 24 miles an hour. The display does read a hair fast though, so that might only be like 23.5 or something. But I consider anything over 20 miles an hour up a hill pretty good. I've got a lot steeper hills coming up though. Yeah, that percentage is making me a little bit nervous. It says 60%. I haven't even gone 10 miles yet. I'm hoping it just is not good at calculating. I will say though, on pedal assist 5, because the throttle changes how fast it will allow you to go depending on your assist level, the bike is quick. So it could just be sucking a lot of power. But I'm gonna be a little more conservative because getting there is the easy part. This is the start of the downhills. And what will hopefully be some pretty awesome views. Let's see if we can get it up to 40 miles an hour. 38. Come on. 38. So far the handling's feeling pretty good. The suspension feels pretty good. Ooh, that skunk does not smell good. I'm hoping I can just kind of keep up with the flow of traffic down the hill because this is a really windy back road. We're doing 37. This is also a good road to test this on because it's really bumpy. I'm testing that full suspension. I feel like the battery dropped down to 60% really quick, but now it hasn't budged. Woohoo! Brakes are feeling pretty good. Oh. It's not a motorcycle. I mean, it's still a bicycle, but the weight of it is so much to heft around. It makes it feel really stable and smooth in the turns, more like a motorcycle. So that's kind of interesting. Windy for the next 7 miles. The other reason I really wanted to do this route is because this is something I used to do either on a mountain bike or a road bike before I had electric bikes. And there's no way I could do this ride now with my current health. But on this, I can. 15-mile-an-hour turn. Let's call it 25. The further into the canyon we get, oh man, my ears are actually popping. The further down into the canyon we get, the less likely it is I'll make it back. I made it. This is Bridgeport. Been here many times as a kid, swimming in these rivers, either up or down the creek. And there it is. No camping, no fires, no alcohol, no glass, no horses, no signs about bikes. This side of the river is a pretty difficult, not difficult, it's a pretty narrow, I should say, hike. Definitely not bicycle friendly, but we can get to the bridge from here. And check that out. This is pretty awesome. We've got the whole place to myself at the moment. They restored the bridge several years ago. I'm gonna have to go look at the sign and see when it was originally built. They've got these cool little windows where you can look out, and it is a long ways down. But believe it or not, in the winter, if we get a lot of rain and a lot of snow melt, the water has actually made it all the way up to the bridge. Do not drop the camera. Well, the Wallke H6 got me here. Now the only question is, can it get me home? It's showing 58% battery. That does seem like it used an awful lot of battery getting here. I'm a little bit nervous about the trip up the hill. There we go. This covered bridge across the South Fork of the Yuba River at Bridgeport, Nevada County, California, was built by David I. Wood in 1862. With lumber from his mill in Plum Valley, Sierra County, California. That is one old bridge. Definitely a cool spot though if you're ever in Northern California. It's a little out of the way, but I would highly recommend checking it out. I think now I'm gonna ride across the bridge on the bike, but first, let's see how the bike did on the dyno. Start. In 3, 2, 1. It did not like the power all at once. So let's roll it on and go. Oh, that's pretty good. Higher RPM than I expected. The screen is a little optimistic. It's saying I'm going 37.2, and that's saying 35. So this is slightly fast. But that was a pretty good run. I'm gonna do it one more time just because I gotta kind of roll the throttle on a little bit, make sure I'm getting the best number I can get. I'm not worried about battery sag because it's so big. Right around 1300 watts, it looks like. Yeah, I think we got the most we're gonna get out of it. Let's see what the official numbers are. 1,349 watts and, wow, 35.85 foot-pounds of torque. I was not expecting that. I'm gonna double check the chart and make sure that's even right. Yeah, those are correct. So I got 35, almost 36 foot-pounds of torque. That's actually really good. Let's write those numbers down, put it on the board. It's gonna knock some bikes down on the list. I think the reason this bike performs so well is the same reason the last bike I put on here performed pretty well. That was the Troxus, which had a 30 amp hour battery. This is a 40 amp hour battery. When you get to capacities this big, the battery is not being worked very hard. So your voltage under load is gonna stay much higher. So you're gonna get better performance. It's just math. Oh, so many bikes have to move down for this. So out of the box, 35.85 foot-pounds, 1,349 watts. It's gonna move past all of these bikes. It's even going to edge out my own Area 13 Blackbird with a little more torque thanks to that smaller wheel, just slightly more wattage, and that really, I think, is just because of that giant battery, that voltage is not dropping under load, and it's just gonna get better performance because of it. Let's get back to riding. And for all of these amazing shots, I've been using the Insta360 camera. I'll put a link in the description to these because they've been amazingly useful for all of my filming. And I'm especially liking the new motorcycle mount. I just got this and it's been working great for bikes. It's so much sturdier than the clamp that I had before. I figure if it can handle motorcycles, it can probably handle e-bikes. And so far in this ride, that has been true. Across the bridge we go. So I've been impressed with the power of the bike. It's got a big battery. It rides nice. The only big downside I can see to this thing so far is the weight. It is a heavy bike. It's all uphill from here. So it's a pretty narrow road coming up here. A lot of blind turns. You just have to hope that people are driving slowly and carefully, and that your bike is fast enough that they have some time to see you. Doing over 20 miles an hour right now. I have it on pedal assist 3, which is kind of limiting the max throttle speed a little bit. I'm just trying to be a little conservative power-wise. But now my battery's reading 58%. So yeah, very strange. Well, now 57, but I feel like it dropped real fast to 60 and then it just kind of stabilized. So maybe they can improve their battery monitoring a little bit, because based on the capacity that's in this thing, there's no way it's actually that low. The other thing I really wanted to test with this bike is kind of the longevity of things like the motor controller. Now, you don't really know on a bike like this till you've ridden it, hundreds or thousands of miles, or lots of people have them, how they're gonna hold up. But a way I can accelerate that timeline is by doing what I'm doing right now, finding a really steep long hill. So this is miles and miles of uphill with no brake and not pedaling, just going throttle and letting the bike do all of the work. So basically, if it was gonna fail going uphill, it'd fail now. Like, I'm trying to kill it. Let's go to 5. So this is max power. This valley right here always just looks like a postcard to me. I think this was the perfect day and time to come because there's been like nobody on the road. That's the great part about destinations like this. You can sometimes go for an hour without hardly seeing a single person. And then you kind of feel like you have the whole road to yourself. So the bike's doing pretty well up the hill. It's still maintaining right about 20 miles an hour on the steeper sections. I gotta say, I'm really glad that I live in a time where technology like this exists and I get to use it. Because riding down to Bridgeport is not something I've been able to do in many, many years now. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it under my own power, but this gives me that experience. So this is still slightly uphill, but we're picking up speed, coming up on 30 miles an hour now. So on a slight grade, this thing really moves. Battery's at 44%. I made it back to Rough and Ready without any issues. The brakes on this worked great. I had no trouble on those steep downhills, even though the bike weighs a lot. I had a little bit of a noise on the front brake right at first out of the box. I think they're all kind of broken in now. I view this as a destination bike. In other words, if you want to go somewhere reasonably far away and just get there, this will do it. Or I also think this could potentially make like a good car replacement type of bike, because it's got room to store a bunch of stuff on the back here. It's got the battery range. Now this is, like I said, a 40 amp hour battery, but interestingly enough, this part of the frame right here, normally on a folding bike, this is where they put the battery, and they don't have this kind of whole chunk back here that just doesn't exist. Well, they have a dual battery option. So if you want more, you can put another 20 amp hour battery in the frame, giving you a total of 60 amp hours on this specific bike. Now this bike normally does cost $24.99, but of course everybody's got their Black Friday deals going. So right now it's on sale for just $18.99. I don't think you can really go wrong for that. If you don't mind the weight, then that's actually, I think, a good deal for a full suspension bike, big battery, good brakes. The screen that's on this bike is in color and just looks nice. Battery percentage, oh, look at that. I just turned the bike back on and my battery's recovered a little bit. It came up from 30% all the way up to 55. So that actually seems more realistic. 30 was seeming kind of low, so I might be able to repeat that trip again. You've got pedal assist 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got average speed, max speed. It's got a pretty big headlight up front. I haven't ridden it at night, so I don't know how bright it is, but size-wise it's big. This button up on the handlebars right here, that is a horn. And the other thing I haven't even mentioned yet is this is another one of those bikes that comes with its own app. So if you want to have things like GPS navigation, but have it integrated into the bike, they're doing that with your phone. So I'm seeing more and more bikes do that. They do advertise that it's a 1,000-watt motor with 1,600 watt peak. Now, I didn't quite get the 1,600 watt peak out of it, but I think I did show that it is quite powerful, both in terms of overall wattage and torque. And I did confirm on their website, and oh, of course, now I parked the bike where I can see it. See that little 203 right there? These are in fact 203 millimeter rotors. That was my guess just looking at them. But as I said, these are much thicker than your typical bicycle rotor. Probably the most interesting about their app is it has an anti-theft feature and a Apple Find My Device type function. So if somebody steals your bike, if you set it up with your phone, then in theory you can use that to locate the bike. Now, I'm not gonna try and get the bike stolen and test that out, but I'll take their word for it. And they do advertise the bike as having a top speed of 33 miles an hour. Thanks, Wallke, for sending me the H6 Max. I'm glad I got to do a nice, long, fun ride on it that I haven't been able to do in a long time. I think it's a pretty interesting package that is going to appeal to a lot of people. If you are one of those people, make sure to check the description. I'll put a link to where you can get one of these. And don't forget that if you are local to me in Northern California, that our grand opening for our new retail store is this Saturday, November 18th. I want to see you there. I want to see you getting great deals on e-bike parts and accessories, helmets, whatever we have in store. We're going to have some killer deals, even better than what's online That does include bikes. And we're still running our sweepstakes. If you haven't heard, we've partnered with Shared Sweeps to give away a brand new Ford Lightning pickup truck and $25,000 in cash. We've got a whole bunch of products that are eligible for the sweepstakes. Just check out our website to see those at area13ebikes.com.